Hi, everybody. Welcome to Keep It Spiritually Simple. I'm your host, Sandra McGellis, and we've got Dr. Sharneal here. I'm so excited. She's been such a busy bee, so we're going to keep this one short, but she's got a couple books out, and I think she wants to share a few stories with you. So, welcome, Dr. Sharneal.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So, we were just talking about our footpaths have been going in a lot of the same directions, but we're not there at the same time. But that will
Yes.
change in 2026. So
Yes,
we'll finally
ma'am.
be in the same location at the same time.
Yes,
So let's
ma'am.
talk about these books and your experience. And I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yeah, so we have a workbook that's coming out for the Science of Miracles. It's a companion workbook, and that should be out in mid-April to beginning of May. I keep thinking it's going to be sooner, but then we get more edits and more layout issues, and I'm just like, wow, there's a lot that goes into this. So but I've had a lot of people who've had a lot of experiences with miracles, and with the miracle book that I read, the Science of Miracles book that I wrote out the first time that just came out. I guess it's been 5-6 years now. But this is a way where people can interact and actually implement what they're doing to see and get the response that they're looking for in a healthy, quick way. So that's one of them that's coming out, and then the other one I almost didn't write. I was actually doing not so great and on a personal level and hiding it. Um, Kind of just being on the DL about some personal things, and still a little bit on the DL about some personal things. And, everyone's going through their stuff. I'm not any different than anybody else watching. Everyone has had lots of things going on. It's just been a really interesting time to be alive, and navigating through all the family issues, and relational issues, financial issues, health issues. It can be a lot, and I was not coping well. Wasn't making a lot of good choices. I wasn't sure about my life path, or even about my life, to be fair, and I was super embarrassed to say that out loud or talk to anyone and share, because I think there's, like, I just made up that there was pressure on me to be a leader, and like that meant positivity, and that meant helping other people. And I was getting to the point where it was like I couldn't even really help other people because I just couldn't help myself. And you and I know both that we have a lot of tools in our toolbox of different things that we have, certifications and emotion code and theta healing, and all the biohacking. And it, there's someone keeps trying to call me. There's all these things that I have implemented over time that have helped in the past. And I was throwing everything at it, Sandra. I mean, like, all this stuff, and it just was not even putting a dent in it. And I didn't know what to do. I was very, very desperate. And I had a counselor that I was talking to online, and she pointed me in this direction with iboga. And that was very foreign to me at the time. It happened to be on my grandfather's birthday, which is interesting because they call it the grandfather. And I didn't even know that until later. I did not know all of the science behind it. I just kept getting spiritual synchronicities to follow that lead, and really didn't know why. I didn't want to know a lot about it, to be fair, because I didn't want to have the comparison or a certain expectation going in and then be disappointed if it didn't do anything. And I'm not the person to do all kinds of plant medicine. Although I've studied plants and herbs and nutrition as a naturopath, and I've went to 54 countries studying, frankincense trees and myrtle trees and melissa trees and frankincense, or I mentioned that, sandalwood in Hawaii, and I've been to South America and Croatia for helichrysum. And so I don't know. I've loved plants, and I have this relationship with nature and plants that it just seemed like a natural progression for me. And even though it's a little bit, counter my brand, and maybe even my brain, in the programming that I've had with ministry and what I thought I was, who I thought I was, or what I made up about myself, I just kept having all of these things pointing to, this is the way, this is the way, this is the way, to the point that I had talked myself out of it, talking to the guy. And then I said, you know what, I'm just gonna take a minute and think about it and just really pause, because he had told me this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your whole life. And that scared the crap out of me. When he said that, I was like, why? But when I said that gives me pause, he said, well, why does it give you pause? Like, what comes up for you? And I said, well, I don't know who normally comes to you and what they have dealt with, but I've had 7 miscarriages. I have a daughter that's no contact, and I don't know why. I've been through 2 divorces and a very, very physical, abusive, mentally abusive, like, stuff. I've had some health stuff. I've had to deliver one of the babies by myself in a bathroom because someone wouldn't take me to the doctor. I've been through, like, if anything is going to be harder than that, like, no bueno, I'm not signing up for that. And, he basically was like, well, you won't be doing it for nothing. It'll be for hope on the other side. There'll be some support. It's not just to do it, it's not recreational. Anyway, I just decided to walk away, got in my car. And when I got in the car, I put in a DVD, or I didn't know a DVD was still in there. I assumed it was on Robert Tennyson Stevens, who is my mentor and one of the 6 people who passed in a 2-week period, which was also causing a lot of just disruption in my daily path, like just trying to figure out how to do life without all these major key players that were very integrated in my everyday. And he was in there. He was in their DVD, and I just played it, and I just thought, if I listen to him, I'll feel calm. Right now, I don't feel calm, and so I put it in there just to hear his voice and feel calm. And he starts sharing this story about how these pilgrims came over, and they had their ships, and they came in, and basically, the natives showed up, and they were like, where did you come from? And they all point to the ships, and they're like, right over there, see them. And he said that the natives could not see the ships no matter how much they pointed. And they finally went and got this medicine man, and medicine man came over and started helping them. And for somehow, I don't know how, but the story is the medicine man helped these guys see the ships, because the moral of it is, I don't know if it's quantum or, the law of observation or what it is, but Robert's sentence that was next is, sometimes you need a medicine man to see the things that you can't see. And I was like, I know. And I was like, I literally was just like, I'm on pause. Let me think about this. And that's the first thing, is like, I almost felt like I do feel like I got a message from the dead to just be like, you're in the right spot. Just go for it. Don't ask any questions. Just follow this. And so I called the guy back, and I'm like, okay, I'm in, let's do it. And we set it up. And I didn't tell a single person that I was doing it except for my husband and I think my mom. And I wasn't going to tell anyone when I came home either, because I just wanted to see how it was for myself. And it was absolutely insane, major change in my every area of my life, which I didn't see right away until, getting home, and I'm still integrating that. But even when it was over and I finally had my first meal, and I was just going through, still trying to remember everything that happened and write stuff down, I had this, like, internal conversation, and I thought to myself, like, am I going to tell anyone? And I opened up my fortune cookie, and it said, do not be afraid to tell the world your experience. And I was like, oh my God, here it is again. And I have had so many of those things. I literally had to start writing it down. because I felt a little crazy about how many things kept like adding to the story. And once I had it all written, and which is still happening, I was like, you know what, I'm going to put this in a book. And I started actually studying the science because I'm a geek and I love all this stuff. And I had no idea that this helps Parkinson's and MS and definitely addictions and, any kind of addictions, which I know this is your wheelhouse of, it could be shopping or gambling or gaming or even trauma loops of thinking addictions, or just addictive to finding people that you have a codependent relationship with, or addictions to alcohol or drugs, or buying stuff or porn or any kind of sexual addictions. It's like this does something to the neurotransmitters and resets the dopamine, all, actually everything, serotonin, all of it, and clears this whole thing. But then there's this other amazing opportunity that happens in the brain, nootropically. And, when we're 1 or 2 years old, we have a lot of what they call BDNF and GDNF, which is what allows us to learn, what allows our brain to be pliable enough to create these pathways in our brain. And the older we get, the less we secrete this, which makes the pathways that are there already a little more tough to change. And it also, they get more entrained. The more we do it, the more it's like, think of a highway that maybe there's a crack or two, and so they'll come do another layer and another layer, and then you have this really thick highway. They don't just destroy it, they build on what's already been there. And so they have this really, really fat, thick highway, interstate. And that's how our brain is. And it's really hard to change lanes when this is the path and it's been the path for so long. But what happens is when we do a flood dose or microdose, it saturates the brain with the GDNF and the BDNF, where it completely wipes out all of these paths and gives us the ability to reset new paths from scratch. And it's like, what? So the first 90 days are crucial in how you're living your life, the choices you're making, who you're hanging out with, what you're listening to. I've been very on purpose with literally listening to certain things at night when I sleep. And I have unfollowed so many people and anything politics, just nothing having with any kind of drama. I'm not like, and I wasn't really before, but I'm really uber like, no. Friends have changed. My diet has changed. What I drink, what I think about, what I eat, my spending, like my path career wise, like everything has changed. And then I started microdosing, and literally that's what happened with the books. Is I wasn't planning on writing a book, but this gives you so much instruction. It's like very clear, very direct instruction. And I started microdosing, and 3 days later I had 2 books. Like, it really puts your brain back on, like, for clarity and just knowing what you're supposed to do. And you're really trusting your gut and like having such a clear focus, that this wasn't told to me. This is just what's been happening. And now I've interviewed over 500 people and 7 different centers who serve this and facilitate it. And I am hearing even more stories. Three people who were literally suffering with Parkinson's and couldn't dress themselves in wheelchairs, and it resets the dopamine. So they're like 3 weeks later out of their wheelchairs. One person had 1 session and literally got out and was cooking for everyone at the retreat, like at the facility, because she really loved cooking and baking. And she was out of her wheelchair, dressing herself, no more, slobber. And, if she was having to get help walking, but her gait was better, her tremors were gone, no more medicine, a pharmaceutical. Another guy I've talked to 9 months now, just microdosing, but he also had that 3 week mark, and he's walking around getting dressed without like any kind of shuffling, any kind of wheelchair assistance, cooking for himself. He's not, shaking constantly. The tremors are gone. He's been off his meds 9 months. I just got off the phone right before you with the lady with MS, and it has regrown her myelin sheath. And I've talked to, I don't know, 100 vets who had major TBI and or sports injuries and or, whether it's wrestling or boxing or football, where people are having major injuries that have caused them not to remember and to kind of have like Alzheimer's-ish dementia type stuff and really get angry. And I've talked to the spouses of these people, and they're doing either flood doses or microdosing and completely healing their brain. They're showing brain scans before and 6 months later, and it's like a completely different brain. And I just watched a documentary or a little snip yesterday. Rick Perry, the former governor of Texas, he did a flood, and they did Stanford actually did some testing on his brain before and 6 months later, and he had 27% increase of movement within his brain in his prefrontal cortex in just 6 months. And they told him that his brain looked like it was a 40-year-old brain instead of however old he is. I guess he's probably in his late 60s. I don't really know. And then opiates, because it deals with addictions, it resets all the receptors that normally people addicted to opiates or heroin or benzos or anything. It's an 18-month grueling withdrawal time for someone who does it in the Western clinical situation. No judgment, but a lot of people actually die from the withdrawals, even under doctor's care, and only have a 7% success rate with 18 months of all of that, putting your life on hold for 18 months, not you, a person, being in horrific pain and maybe dying from it, and only 7% chance that they'll stay like that, versus one flood dose, 86% chance success rate, no symptoms at all, no withdrawals, gone. And if they do 2 in a week, it goes up to 96% success rate. So the suicides that have happened since 9/11 from these guys with TBI and deployments, 6 and 7 deployments. My son-in-law is in 6 by the time he was 25 years old, and he was discharged with TBI. And I know a ton of other people who have all, my dad was military, so I know a lot of military people. My daughter's in the military, so I run into these people, and it sucks. And we are not taking care of our vets. I mean, it sucks. And the suicide rate, we lost 3,000 since 9/11, and 30,000. We're losing 22 to 49 a day in suicide from these vets. And that's not even counting the spouses of these guys, because they're dealing with it. It's a family issue. It's not a single person. It affects the entire family unit. And now these spouses, they're saying 1 out of every 7 days, they're having a spouse of a vet that's taken their own life. Oh my God, I'm going to cry. It just upsets me, because this should be legal and this should be more available to people, because we shouldn't. People don't have to suffer trying to get off drugs or trying to just get their brain, or
Yes.
Parkinson's people or MS people, I'm very, very passionate about this. Sorry.
No, you take a minute there. I think it's really important. The more I've been understanding plant medicine for the number of years I've been uh, being drawn toward, being called to understand it, just like addiction. And spirit has been, you've got to open up the door to your podcast and start talking about this, because we're in such a controlled, all the governments are controlling so many things that you have to go to usually faraway lands and plan for it. And it's very controlled. Your preempt work is important. Your experience is important, and then your post care is very important. So it has to be taken seriously. And it is so powerful. It would wake up so many people that I don't think the government would know what to do with any of us. And I think at one point we wouldn't know what to do, being so wide awake and having all these neural pathways that we're not accustomed to firing and receptors not accustomed to receiving. So our transmitters are now more clean and less corrupt. So it may cause some of us to short circuit because we'll be like, holy moly, what do we do with this? So I think it's important, like people like yourself who are already educated, who is human, who's having a human experience and saying, gosh, you know what, with all this spiritual shifting in consciousness, I shifted, and nothing of what I used to use that I shared with all my patients isn't working anymore. So you had to go out and find something that did, to open up your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit, because that's really what we're here for, is open up the spiritual pathway that we're here to live. And then to share all this, that you can come back and bring it to humanity, to the general public that needs to know more about this.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I feel like my mission is now. Like, I just believe I this is all I want to do is help with that, because I just think it's a crime for people to be stuck, whether it's anxiety or PTSD or CPTSD or TBI or addictions. There's so many people just stuck and don't know what to do, and literally end their life over it. And it's unnecessary, because there's a lot of availability to support, and integration is super important. Like that first 90 days, I definitely suggest people get a coach to walk through that. I'm actually working on a workbook as a companion to the book as well, for Father Iboga, because I didn't get the prep personally, and I didn't get any after suggestions on what to expect or why I should do certain things. And I think people should be karmically responsible in explaining that better and making sure, because what can happen, and what I've actually seen, unfortunately, is a lot of these places overseas, in that neuroplasticity opportunity, they're giving them benzos on the last day. They're given like 3 to 6 month benzo like prescription for sleep or anxiety. But when you have those pathways that are pliable, and you have this new opportunity for highway, if you set it in with benzos is even harder to get off than heroin. And so I have a center that has had multiple people come to them because they have went somewhere else that put them on benzos on the last day, and now they're stuck on benzos and can't get off benzos, and there's a lot of side effects with that. And so going to the right place is really important, and knowing how to prepare yourself and knowing what to do when you get home. Your provider is very, very important. Making sure you're not on any SSRIs or have any cardiac issues. That's really, really important. Um, Anyone who's bipolar or has any schizophrenia type mental issues, this is not a good idea for that person either. So there's just a lot of things that I think are important. And then, there's a difference between ibogaine and iboga. And what I've seen and heard multiple places now is these vets that are coming to me saying, well, I didn't do iboga because I was told to do ibogaine. And I'm like, I'm not against ibogaine, but I'm just saying ibogaine is one extract from iboga. Iboga has all the alkaloids, and we don't know why someone has the addiction in the first place. And if they have the full spectrum, then we can get to the trauma, and we can get to some of these other pockets of things, and dig in to find the spiritual reason, because I really believe it's a spiritual issue, and a relational issue, a community issue if someone has an addiction. So I know we're going to talk about that when we do our continuation with the series that you're doing, and I'm excited for that because I think it's really important. I think, I know suicide and addictions are way up since 2020, way
Yes.
up for a lot of reasons, and I think there's a lot of people who are suffering in silence and just, raw dogging it in life, thinking that there's no other way, and there really is. There is. And if any of you are watching and you are that person and you need help, please reach out to me. I can point you in the right direction, whether it's a flood dose or a microdose, or if you want to get the book or anything, if you feel like this is resonating with you at all and you're out there and you're like, oh my God, this is me. Like, that's how I got here, is like someone told me about it, that what they went through and how it helped them, and I couldn't shake it once I heard about it. And not everyone should do it. Um, but you will know, because the medicine will start working with you and start calling you right away. And I thought I made that up. I never even heard of that before. Like, I honestly was like, this is wild. Like, all these things kept happening. And then now that I've interviewed over 500 people, everyone said, I felt like it was calling me. And I was just like, so many people have said that. I was like, is that a thing? And everyone's like, that's a thing, apparently, And I was just like, okay. And
Well,
there's
the
differences.
plants are living, breathing consciousness.
They're intelligence. They
Yeah.
have intelligence, and they know what to do to help us. And so I'm actually in the process of wanting to start a 501c nonprofit to raise money to help people who can't afford it. I just spoke at a 4-hour symposium in Los Angeles. Um, and I'm invited back next week to speak again. And then I'm doing another one in April, two in April, one in Dallas and one in Los Angeles. And I'm just going to get these books out and do podcasts and start this 501c. And this is my direction now. I cannot do anything but eat, sleep, drink, think, talk about this. Like, this is, like, I believe the reason why I'm here.
Well, it's your mission. It's a spirit driven mission, and I do agree with you that many of addictions are spiritual disconnect. And Carl Jung talks about that. So I think people are, because we're going through so much conscious shifting, cosmic shifting, and we knew this was all coming. Our brains are changing, our body chemistries are changing. So when you get the urge to be like, my life just isn't what I want it to be, or all this stuff isn't working anymore, or I feel like I need to go another direction, some of this plant medicine can help you get there by helping you unload some of the stuff that no longer needs to be an albatross on your back, trauma, drama that you've allowed to create up to this moment. But it doesn't have to be so dramatic, nor do you have to wait till you're in the pits of hell, grabbing at your viscerals, like my life, or something really traumatic happens that makes you turn towards this, because spirit doesn't always want us to get knocked over the head. But
Yep.
our entire brains are changing, our bodies are changing, and it's so subtle. And it's like what we were 6 months ago or a year ago is very different, at least for those that I know that are on the spiritual growth path, that are aware of it. Others are starting to awaken that the world isn't what it is, the truth isn't what it is, life
Yep.
isn't what it is. They're in this matrix. And now we also have
Oh, yeah.
we have this huge medical matrix that everyone's getting caught in, because we have more disease and more illnesses in the United States now than we've ever had, more cancer clinics, more neurological disorders, more everything, more suicide, more everything. And there's no hope because the prices are way too high and you're stuck in this loop. And
Yep.
we individually, in order to become groups and collective, have got to step the fuck back and go, this shit's not going to work. How can I
Yep.
help? And which way can I go? So now I can come back and actually help someone else. And
Yes.
that's what you're doing.
Yep. And it's antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, antihistamine, anti-inflammatory, anti-parasitic. And like I said, I'm working with this lady at a clinic, and she was doing testing before and after just with 3 months, just in 90 days. And people will have a 50% decrease in every one of those loads across the board, which, what that does is if you don't have fungus, parasites, inflammation, all the things I just said, then you're going to have a different body with a different chemistry, different hormones, which will give a different biofield, which is both electronic and magnetic, which brings you different people and different situations and different opportunities. And, we're literally healing from the inside out. Again, whether it's microdosing or going and doing like a ceremony to sit down and do a session, which again, it's not recreational to do this. So like, you better know if you want to do it, because it's not like flowers and hippie, kumbayaing around a fire or anything like that. It's tough. And Conor McGregor did it, I guess, a week before I did, or a few days before I did, and he tweeted about it. And he actually, or X, whatever, I guess it's not Twitter anymore, but he said, oh, 36 hours, and I finally got some rest, and I'm a different person. And he saw Jesus and Mary Magdalene and the Trinity. He saw his death and what would have happened if he died. And he literally said, this is the toughest thing I've ever done in my entire life, but I am a new man. And I was like, for Conor McGregor to say this is the toughest thing he's ever done, I'm like, my God, but he got off all his drugs and everything with no withdrawals, and apparently not drinking and not doing, a lot of this stuff. And I've talked to even, some people on the DL as far as like celebrity types that have done it in their own crisis and not really talking about it, but they're having huge changes in their life, and so, anyway, I hope that helps. I don't know. I know that we had to cut it like a little shorter for time's sake, but there's a
Well, it
lot more
helps
to
a
talk
lot, and
about.
and
And
there is a lot more to talk about. But I know that you are going through a lot of changes and things that are occurring, and trying to get these books out, because when we're on a mission to change the world, there is like such a laser focus that everything else falls by the wayside. So I truly appreciate, number one, having the courage to do this and listening to the messages that came quite clearly, and then to step into it and step through it, and then to continue to be going through it, and then to bring it back to others. And I'm getting so much confirmation, because the whole time I've been getting chills everywhere. And of course, I have sight. So beside me right now is like in purplish, and it's a face. I can't quite make out the face, but it's letting me know my spiritual guides of some type are here talking with me, and conferring as we're going through this. So yeah, so I just want to thank you so much. I can't wait to have you on the series for addiction, and we'll talk more about that. But in the meantime, I just want you to take care of you, and honor every single day. But you know what? We all have got to get off the scrolling and all this information, because as times are changing right now, and we are going through metamorphosis, multiple metamorphoses, right? We have to let go of all the things that don't serve. And you're not going to know what doesn't serve unless you stop, drop, sit, connect with your breath, and go, what? Is this pattern working for me? Are these people working for me? Is this job working for me? Is where I live working for me? Is my paycheck working for me? Is the food that I'm eating making me feel this way? Do I have to go to family gatherings? Do I really want to be with this or do this? We've got to start really thinking about all the things that we're doing and take the responsibility and our due diligence, and back the frick up and take a closer look, clear off that whiteboard, and start over.
yeah, no, it is. It's definitely time for a real authentic check-in. And this medicine helps you really connect with God in a way that I've never ever thought I could have a relationship with God in that sense. And I don't mean God like religiously at all. Like, I've always loved God, but this, I'm more in tune with myself, and I'm more clear on what I'm doing, and I know that God is supporting that somehow. um
And
but yeah.
isn't it interesting how you've like Well, and I don't, the word unfriended, but you've disconnected from things that don't serve you. Facebook,
Mhm.
social media, people, places, things. You're making the changes. Why? Because you're on the God path. You're on
Yes.
source creator's path.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with, having Facebook. I'm still on Facebook, and I've just unfriended a lot of things that were not really lining up with where I am, and I'm getting clarity on what I am lining up with,
Mhm.
and and what feels good to me right now. And and I'm working with people and doing integration for people who have gone through it and or microdosing themselves to help people get through their metamorphosis. But the book is called Grandfather Iboga. It's a personal story of grief, trauma, healing, and transformation. That's the name of the book. And you can go to drsharneal.com and pick that up. Right now, I'm self publishing, which costs a lot. And I've taken time off of work to do this. So that's fun. And you for anyone who I did so I could kind of help pay for the printing and the publishing and the layout and the editors and the barcodes and the covers, and oh my god, there's so much expense to this. But if you're interested in pre-ordering and support this, please get out there and order it. Same with the workbook, and I'm working on this other workbook now. I'm actually finishing the two, just in the editing process, and I'm working on 4 other books at once. So uh yeah, I'm helping people, and I'm still dealing with this house situation with the vandalism thing. And I'm just doing what I'm doing, and I love every one of you who are out there, and I wish you so much love in your experience. This is an amazing human experience that we're having, and we're here for a reason. And you watching, you're here for a reason, and we need you. So stay on board, stay online, and if you need help, do not be afraid to ask help. I think people are afraid to ask for help. I was afraid to ask for help, and I think that's very humbling to actually say I need help.
Yes.
And call it ego or whatever. I finally got to that place where I was like, I need help.
Mhm.
And so if you're out there struggling, you don't have to struggle. Call me, and I'll point you in the right direction, and you can get the help that you need, and you will be a brand new person.
And I know that you mean that. And you know what? This is a prime example of how you can be in 5D and still live in the 3D world, because you can juggle the both. You just have to rearrange the priorities of the day. So I just so appreciate your time. I'm going to say goodbye to the people, but if you'll hold on for a second, because I do have a question for you. So,
Mhm.
hey, everybody, stay tuned for future episodes for this episode by hitting subscribe, like, and share. Leave us a comment, question. I will have Dr. Sharneal's uh, website link down below. And just hang in there, because you are love, and we are walking, breathing, loving vehicles. And we just need to get on a higher path of loving breathing. That's it. Really, truly.
Amen.
Get more heart centered and step away from all this crazy,
Yeah.
and start creating.
Yes.
Change your seas. All right. So say goodbye, Dr. Sharneal, but then hang on tight for me there a
All
second.
right. Bye, guys.